afternoon with my mom and my dad. This is Ted Mars and Alice Mars. Dad is 92 and a half. He will be 93 in August. And Mom is 80. I can never remember Mom's age. 86? Is that right?
I think so. She will be her birthday.
She's going to be 86 in April. So I just thought it'd be fun to talk to them a little bit about what their life's been like. We had a family dinner here last week on Thursday, and after we ate, Dad got to talking and Mom about what it was like growing up when they grew up, and basically Dad shared stories for an hour and a half, and it was very interesting. I promise we're not going to talk for an hour and a half, but I just thought you might enjoy hearing from them. So, Dad, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in 1929, west of Hidalgo, and I've lived in this area all my life. And actually, only 3 different houses. No, 4 different houses. And none of them has ever been new. They've just always been adequate.
Well, I would say where you're living now is more than adequate. But so you've lived in 4 different houses.
Yeah.
How many siblings did you have?
We had 3 children, 3 daughters. Amy's deceased.
Mm-hmm.
And Karen lives 3/4 of a mile down the road from us. And Amy Susan lives about 3.5 miles northeast of us.
So you're hemmed in by bossy daughters.
They take well care of us.
And we feel like it's a privilege. And Mom she grew up in Yale, and Mom had a sister, Ruth, and a brother, Bill, and another brother, Denzel. And Mom's dad died when she was 2. And he died of appendicitis, I think.
Yes.
Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
So Grandma Spencer raised her children without a husband in a time when there was no Social Security, or he probably did not have a big savings account when he died. And so your granddad Parcel, I've heard you say, helped take care of you. And Grandma Spencer, some of you might know that she wrote the Yale News in the Newton Press, and also that was published in, I think, the Robinson paper. And is that right, Mom?
I think the Casey paper.
And the Casey paper. And Greenup, maybe?
I don't think the Greenup.
Not Greenup. So anyway, the other day, Lindsay Westridge had Bogota News 2.0 on her Facebook page. And it made me think a lot of what Grandma used to write in the Yale Press. It was fun. So, Dad, how many siblings did you have?
I had 3 sisters.
So,
And
where were you in the birth order?
I was the 3rd in the birth order.
So, you had 2 older sisters and a
Yes.
younger sister.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like being the only son with 3 sisters?
Well, they all treated me just like candy.
Well, they did.
A lemon drop.
Oh, gosh. Well, tell us something about, I love my aunts, so tell me something about Angela.
Angela was one of the finest and kindest ladies I ever knew. And she would do anything for you. And she had 2 boys, Gary and David, but her and her husband eventually divorced. And then she married Bill Will, who was an executive in the Peabody coal company, and they moved to Collinsville, where they lived until Angela developed I don't remember how many years, but several years, when Angela developed a condition which she couldn't recover from and passed away.
But she lived to be, was she in her 90s?
I think probably she was about 90, yes.
Okay, and then you had Mickey. Tell us about Mickey.
Mickey was my second sister, and she was quite a tomboy, and she always wished she had been a man, but she never was.
Back before that was cool.
And she liked to help farm and help milk the cows after she got married and did all types of farm work.
And she was very talented.
She was talented. She played the guitar and sang and not, I guess, publicly, but for her own pleasure and entertained the family some.
And she also wrote.
She did write some poetry, and other people wish they could do that, but didn't seem to have that talent.
Oh, well, I beg to differ. We've learned in his later years that Dad is also a poet. I remember as a kid that we used to go to Mickey and Olin's, it seemed like once a week.
Probably that.
And she would fix barbecue chicken, and then before we left, she would always pick up her guitar, and she could play the guitar and the harmonica at the same time. And she would always...
She didn't sing then when she played it.
That's true. But then she would also sing to us kind of a family favorite, which, Karen, you want to come and sing it? Once I went a swimming where there were no women. And we loved that song, and she always sang that to us. Okay, so...
We sang it at her funeral.
Yeah, and we even sang it at her funeral.
At her gravesite.
At her gravesite, we did. And then June is still living. Mickey lived to be... I don't know if she was 90. Was she? She was in her 90s too.
I think so.
And then June, your baby sister, is still alive, and she's 89.
She's 3 years younger than I am.
Will be 89, yeah. So tell us about June. She may watch this, so.
Well, June married a man by the name of Lowell Rhodes, and they moved somewhat. He was a truck driver, and they ended up in the suburb of Columbus, Ohio, and he got a cancer and passed away while they were there. And later then, she married a gentleman by the name of Jack Cook, whom she met when he was a young man, a boy, when they were going to grade school. And they seemed to remember each other well from that meeting in grade school when they were going to the old Hudson School, which was about 1.5 miles west of Hidalgo. And anyway, Jack's wife passed away, and June's husband passed away, and they had a wedding and got married on our home farm west of Hidalgo, and with family members present. And they live next door to where I live for a few years, and then they began to have health problems and wanted to be closer to his family, his sons, so they moved back to Pekin, Illinois, where they live now. And I talked to June this morning, and they seem to be doing well.
Good. So we feel really blessed that and Mom's sister Ruth is still alive. She's in her 90s too, and she was a nurse. And we feel really fortunate that we've had all these relatives that have lived a long time. Mom was the school secretary at Rose Hill School. Do you remember how many years, Mom?
No, not really.
Innumerable.
Lots of years, and she probably held some of you on her lap, probably. I hear that from people that she helped their scared children get used to school. So that was
the first grade.
Yeah, it was a first grade center.
Yeah.
Well, we were very fortunate to have a school and teachers and bus drivers and cooks to help these children. I know if you people could have gone to school back in our time and see what wonderful people cared for all the children.
As you can tell, she is prejudiced.
Mom is a number one supporter of our public school system, because you should be, right?
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you that Mom has also been a member of the Rose Hills Household Science Club for as many years as I can remember. And we have pictures. Mom loves pictures. And there's a picture upstairs of the Rose Hill Household Science Club when they put on, I don't know if it was a play, but Mom dressed up as Jack Kennedy and Rosie Carr was Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. And there's a picture of them. It's so cute. It's so cute. And so we grew up with the Rose Hill Household Science Club being a part of our family. That's the name we go by, right?
Rose Hill Household Science Club. That's the name we go by.
Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, Mom and Dad have lived long enough to see a few things change. So Dad, you did go to Korea, and maybe we don't want to get into all the war stuff, but what was it like for somebody from Hidalgo who probably hadn't experienced a lot of traveling?
Well, I've been in Newton and all that.
What was it like to go to Korea?
Well, it was quite a learning experience, I guess you would say. I got on a plane in St. Louis and flew out to L.A. I guess it was L.A. I can't remember the city there. And was stationed at Camp Stoneman till it was put on a ship to go to Korea. And this was the 9th day of April. And the day we sailed under the Golden Gate Bridge, it was a cloudy, gloomy, horrible looking day. And of course that didn't help anybody's spirits a great deal, thinking they were going to Korea and leaving on a day like that. But when we came back, which was almost a year to the day later, the sun was shining brightly, and spirits were much better, although there were some that went the first time that did not come back in the correct.
Yeah, like they would have wanted to. Yeah,
like they wanted to, that's for sure. And some of them died, but then the last week or two before they were ready to come home.
Gosh. Well, one thing that you might appreciate about Dad is that when he prays for our country every time. So what, if you could say something to people that might keep it, what would you say to people about our country?
What would I say to people about our country?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that we live in the greatest country on earth, but it is deteriorating rapidly from the morals that we are founded upon and what we're living under today. And I still pray for our country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know it says that Brenda Scott is watching this, and her son is actually in the service right now. So hang in there, Brenda. We appreciate what your son's doing for our country, and probably some other people too that I don't know about. So if you have family members serving, we honor you. Thank you. So back to growing up in Hidalgo. So where did you go to high school?
I went to Newton Community High School.
And just a sidebar, Dad and Brad's mom, Mary, were the co-valedictorians of their high school class, which is kind of an interesting fact. Tell them about...
Normally, people who are valedictorians, Mary was smart, but Ted was not.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
But I did work harder than most of the other people who were smarter. Or that's the way I felt about it.
So were you in FFA?
Yes.
Tell them what FFA was like.
Well, I think that Newton High School had one of the largest FFAs in the state of Illinois at that time. And maybe the year I graduated had more state farmers in that group than any other group. But we had a advisor, teacher, and he was good on promoting FFA.
Mm-hmm.
And we might not have learned as much about farming from him as we should have, but we learned how the FFA worked and how to achieve things to gain honor in that.
Uh-huh. Well, that's, I'm sure, a skill that served people.
I'm sure it served people well.
Uh-huh. So I like when Dad talks about being on the basketball team, so tell him about that.
Well, I've always kind of shied away from being on the basketball team because I wasn't good enough to play, and we didn't win but one game that year.
That's all right. You were still part of the team. I was the oldest person on the B team.
It was
in softball, can relate.
It was kind of strange when Brandon, my grandson, was playing basketball. He had the same number, or the same number on his shirt
that
I had.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Well, so you practiced after school.
After school,
and
yes. And I had, of course, everyone had to furnish their own transportation, and we lived 14 miles from the school. And I only had to walk home one time. I caught a ride to the Y, and I walked home from the Y. And there was snow on the ground, as much snow as there is, more than there is today. But it wasn't cold.
Uh-huh.
But it was a long walk.
Can you imagine that? I just think that's amazing.
But I had arrangements made to ride to Hidalgo with the man that worked for the county. But we practiced too long that day for me to... he wouldn't wait on me. I mean, he had a family and he needed to get home. And I was welcome to ride with him, but I needed to be there when he got off of work so that I could ride with him. Well, I didn't get there that day, that time, and he didn't wait on me, which I wasn't expecting him to.
Mm-hmm.
And
so after
anyway,
going to school,
that was the way. I kept thinking someone would come along and pick me up, but they didn't that time. Most of the time, if you was in that kind of a situation, someone would pick you up and haul you to Hidalgo.
Uh-huh. Wow. So that's kind of an interesting little side.
But that was a little bit worrisome to keep you from concentrating on your practicing as much as you should, especially when it becomes time that you need to be getting your shower and getting dressed and getting to
your ride.
Your ride, yeah.
What time did you get home when you had to walk home from Newton?
I don't remember for sure. Probably about 7 or 7:30.
And no phones, period.
No, we didn't have a phone. Well, I didn't have a phone at home either.
Uh-huh. So that's just mind-boggling. That's mind-boggling. So Mom went to high school at Casey, and she actually, do you remember who you lived with?
Yes, I lived with the
Johnsons.
And he was a doctor.
And he was a doctor. And I helped with the children when I come home. And it was wonderful.
So they treated you like one of the family.
Oh, my land, yes.
And you moved, so you lived with them during the school year. And then lived with your mom
Mm-hmm. Yes.
in the summers. So that's something that's a little bit different. And there's a story that I've heard about, didn't Angela ride the train to Newton? Or am I dreaming that? Or was that Grandma?
Grandma rode the train to Newton, but she stayed down there.
For high
during
school?
the week, yes. Yeah, have been 3 generations that graduated from Newton High School. My mom and me and you.
And my kids.
And your kids. So
and now my granddaughter.
Okay.
So, go Newton. We are believers in Newton High School. Were you in 4-H?
No.
Was there such a thing as 4-H?
I don't think they had a 4-H club when I was young.
Okay, so when you helped your dad farm, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. And did you farm with horses then?
We had a tractor.
But Granddad farmed with horses.
We had horses too, planted with horses, but we worked the ground with the tractor.
I find that amazing that Dad farmed with his dad with horses still, and then tractors.
Have you seen that picture of me with that team of horses?
Yes.
And I was going to the fields,
Oh, you were going to the field then.
And I had a harrow on the back of the pile on the back of the wagon, and I was going to drive those horses and drag over the plowed ground to level it up and begin to work it.
And then Brock is probably going to have an autonomous tractor soon. One that will drive itself.
Probably shortly. I mean, I'll bet he's got one in the next 3 years.
Probably. It's just amazing how things have changed. So on your farm, when you were a kid, Granddad, he didn't just farm, did he?
We drove the school bus after we got old enough to go to high school. He drove the school bus.
Which he had to buy, right?
He bought the first one, and then the school started furnishing them. But he drove a bus after the school furnished him, and he was the mechanic in the new stadium. One end, the bus garages were under the stadium, and he had a shop under there where he would fix radiators, which lots of radiators and brakes were the primary things that he had to work on, as I recall it, because there's rocks and stuff that go through the radiators, and some drivers wore the brakes out pretty rapidly. So he said.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So you had animals, I'm assuming.
Yes. We had primarily milk cows and maybe 2 or 3 horses. Maybe more horses earlier than that, but probably when he was driving the bus we didn't have it. We had a horse we could ride.
Do you remember that horse's name?
Not really. We also had a pony that when Fred went to the Army, he brought that pony out there. And her name was June. And it stayed there till we loaned it to the Snedekers.
Okay.
That lived east of us. And Joe and Marv rode that pony to school, to the Switch school down here, because they lived 1 mile and a half from the school, and the roads got so nasty that school buses couldn't run.
So people had to ride their horses.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I'm trying to get my time mixed up, but I know that they did ride that pony to school sometimes.
So when you went to grade school, how many different schools were there in like a township?
I can't tell you that. There was supposed to be in a school, whatever, 4 mile square, something like that.
So you could get to school in a 2 mile.
Yeah.
Was that the idea? Who was you remember any of your teachers?
Yes. I think my first grade teacher was Honest Albert, and then George Hutton, and Bob Belger, and Charles Calvert. Did I mention him?
No.
I think those were my teachers.
Oh.
Most of them were pretty good, but I think I'd have to classify one of them as not exactly excellent.
Okay, we won't go into that. Okay, so I know that you guys were in the band because I've seen a picture of it. So tell us about that.
Well, at that time, they had music teachers who would travel around through the county, and they'd spend a half a day or so at these country schools, and they had maybe 2 different schools they were at each day, and every day they would rotate to them. So they was at a school once a week, and they taught music and they taught art also, I think. And they didn't teach me how to write legibly.
But you did learn how to play what instrument?
I learned how to play the 4-string banjo. And one time I went with a group up to the U of I to play with the group up there.
Oh my goodness, I did not know
Never
that.
hear of that.
We are learning some things today. So have you continued to play the banjo?
No, I have not.
But we do.
I still do have that banjo someplace.
Mm-hmm. Is it at your
Where?
house, Karen? Where is it?
I don't think it's in this.
And they got me a 5-string banjo, and I never did learn. I messed with it a little, but I never did learn how to play it. Seemed like I couldn't get it to stay in tune or something. You know?
Okay. So, Mom, did you play an instrument?
Oh, I did just a little bit.
Uh-huh. Because I didn't remember ever hearing that you.
No, I was not a.
But you guys, your family has a lot of good singers in it.
Right.
So music was important in your family too.
Exactly.
You played the clarinet, didn't you?
Well, yes, but not as well as I should have.
Well, that doesn't matter. You played it. These people don't know how well you played it.
I bet they
Mom, you could say, yes, I was accomplished clarinetist or whatever you're
No,
calling
I don't think
yourself.
I'll do that. Because there's too many people that know me.
Okay, so Mom was quite an accomplished seamstress. And she used to make, I don't know, did she make all our clothes or
Well, she made some of them, but I don't know.
a lot of our clothes? And if we needed something like special occasion-y, she made it. And I know there's pictures where you made, like at Christmas, you would made all of our outfits. Who taught you to sew? Do you remember?
Oh, my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the older I got, well, we had neighbors that helped me do lots of things.
So tell us about Lucille White. You
Oh,
remember about Lucille? That she taught you about gardening.
Yes. She probably taught me how to garden, and I remember, but I wished I had really spent more time, and maybe I should have put a little bit of it in a book or something, but I didn't.
You should have. You should have.
But I was we just had people that was so nice that you cannot believe it.
We lived on a road growing up that had really nice people. So we had Clarence and Lucille, and Clarence and Etta, Ann and Al Waggle, Peg and Maine Carpenter. Oh, yeah, Freda Mendenhall. There used to be, there's still a lot of people that live on this road, but you guys really neighbored with each other, which was nice and different. Mom still has flowers, actually, that came from Lucille. And
Oh my goodness.
pass around plants. Or
Etta and Lucille
Well, I'll tell you a little story about
taught me
Lucille.
so much stuff. I mean,
After Clarence was deceased, she insisted I go down there to Clarence Morley's and get a hickory sprout out from under that hickory tree that was growing down there. She says, if we don't set out some hickory trees, we're not going to have any hickory trees around here. And I wasn't much in favor of doing it, but I did go do it. And that tree's growing out here at the end of the, north of the end of the shed today.
I did not know that.
And it bears nuts too. And
Interesting. So, when did you guys moved down here in what year? Do you remember? I was born in 55, so it was after that.
yeah, it was after that.
But Karen wasn't born yet, I don't think.
No, Karen was born here.
Mm-hmm.
So we was born, but we moved down here between.
Those years. Yeah. So, when you first started farming, what all did you raise and stuff?
Basically the same thing we do now, except we did raise some soybeans for hay. And now you don't raise any soybeans for hay, it's all for grain. But we raised soybeans for grain then, but we did raise some soybeans. There were a different variety of beans that you raised for hay. They didn't get so tall, but they would get tall, and then they get go down and get viney, and they were good. They were a good high protein quality hay if you could get them put up without get them cured and get them up without the rain on them. I mean, milk cows did well on them.
And then you had cows.
We had cows, yes,
So you milked morning and night.
yes.
And I remember Jewel and Wilma. Do you remember any of our other cows?
I don't remember cows' names.
And you raised hogs.
Yes, we started out raising hogs in little huts, and sometimes we ferried them outside under some peach sprouts out there in the lot. In fact, I gave my nieces an education on birthing pigs, but their mothers didn't exactly appreciate that.
Okay,
They
so
thought
would
they
that
should.
have been Sally
It would have been
and Susan?
It would have been Susan and Martha Sue and Joanne, I think. And Edna thought that wasn't very appropriate.
She didn't want them to know that.
Well, I don't know. She didn't want you. I don't know what she didn't want me teaching them. To
Okay, so you had hogs that I remember hogs just
Yeah,
kind of run free range.
yeah, they were just out in a pen.
And then you had chickens.
Yeah, we had a chicken house, and we sold hatching eggs at one time. Not a lot, but we had a variety of chickens that Bernard Folse's feed store would buy these eggs and send them someplace to have them hatched. So we had hens and roosters both. The eggs were fertile, which most laying flocks you don't want any roosters with them because they cause black spots in the eggs. You take them to be sold, and they hold them up to the light. And if there's a black or a bloody spot in them, they throw them out. You can't sell them. Nobody wants to use them.
Mm-hmm. Should you not use them? Because I do. Should you not use them?
No, I think they're all right, except that they are fertilized eggs. And, but anyway, we had a chicken house out here, and we did try to sell hatching eggs, which got you a few more cents per dozen and you had to take them, I think maybe once a week was all you had to take them to the store, and then they shipped them to a hatchery someplace where I don't know where, but and you had to feed their feed.
So there were some requirements.
There were some requirements, yes.
Yeah. So you guys have always raised a big garden.
Well, yes, last year was about the first time we failed too much.
Yes, it was. Well, we won't even talk about that. But you kind of counted on what you could grow to feed your family.
Well, yes. Not only during the gardening time, but you canned those tomatoes and those green beans, and
so you had something to eat.
And you had milk from the cows and eggs. So you grew potatoes if you could. Sometimes the tomato crop wasn't as good as it should have been, but at least they would last till January or maybe longer than that. And so you had food to eat that you didn't have to go to the store and buy.
Now I remember like sliced peaches that Grandma Mars would be like, that was a treat to open a can of peaches.
Yes.
Well, I assume though she didn't have the peach trees. We'd buy the peaches and she would peel them and can them, and then you would open the can of peaches in the wintertime or whenever, and of course they had to be sealed up or else they would have soured, but they were sealed and they were mighty tasty.
Mm-hmm. So Mom, who taught you to cook? Mom was a fabulous cook. Well, you were.
But everybody, every lady over in Yale, Illinois, and churches were so good to me and taught me lots of things. And I can just see how nice everybody was. And I'm sure there's people, there's still that way, and aren't we thankful?
Yes. And you also were a quilter.
Well, yes, but not as well as...
Oh my gosh, you should see how many quilts. If we gathered up all the quilts, they would go clear to the ceiling that are in this house that are stuffed away that you can't even. She's a fabulous quilter.
But it was very nice, and there were so many nice people in every part of the county that I lived and had friends. And
She's got a short memory.
Dad. Now, I don't know if Mom remembers this, but I think this is kind of a cute story. The teachers, when one year, or I don't know how many years, at Rose Hill School, you had Marvin Allison was the principal, and Marie McCrillis and Terry Fear, and Sandra Ward, and who? Diana Hollis. Maybe you formed a group called the Porkettes.
right.
Can you tell us anything about the Porkettes?
Well, the Porkettes were wonderful, wonderful people. And I'm not lying, because everybody was good to each other. And if anybody needed something, they helped you.
So what did you Porkettes like to do?
Oh,
Eat?
But everybody was nice, and everybody worried about the children in the school. And we had an awfully nice with our music. And I think that is something that we should be very proud of.
Yes.
Is how the teachers taught the children to learn how to play in music, and then we'll just like a little bit more about something else. They taught.
I really didn't know the Rose Hill School was heaven on earth.
It was. So Sandra Nichols, if you watch this, 3 cheers for you, because you really made an impact on people. Okay, this is getting kind of long, so I want you to tell us one more thing, Dad. Talk to us about your slow pitch softball, or was it fast pitch?
Fast pitch.
Fast pitch softball.
Well, I'd played baseball at the Hidalgo Diamond for several years.
And if you want to know more about that, he's got a lot of interesting stories about that. But we don't probably have time to get into
them. When I came back
them.
from the Army, there was the basketball team had dissolved, but had started or maybe had started a year before, the Tracy Truckers in Casey. And some of my friends were playing on that team, and one of them was managing it. And so I was invited to go over and play with the Tracy Truckers, and we developed into a pretty good softball team.
So how old were you? I know.
This is after I came home from the service.
Right. Well, I can remember going to the games, so you played for quite a while.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd done that for 2 or 3 years, or I don't know how long. And played in a league over there, and then they began to play some other teams. And occasionally we'd play some teams from Terre Haute. But eventually the Truckers outgrew me, and they got into better competition. And that was about the time Amy came along, and I didn't have time to improve and go with them, so I had to drop out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But they became a very prominent team in this part of the state at that.
But you still were inducted into the...
Well, I got my picture in the Softball Hall of Fame over there because I played with that team.
Uh-huh.
there at the Casey Park where the softball diamond is.
So you might want to check that out.
If you're interested.
Mom, Marie McCrillis is watching. You want to say hi to her?
What?
Marie McCrillis is watching. You want to say hi to her?
Marie? Of course I want to say something to you. You're one of the best women in Jasper County, and
She's in Florida.
But she's in Florida now, but yeah.
well, anyway,
You and Marie have been friends for a long time,
for a
haven't
long time.
you? Okay, well,
And I love her.
we've been going on for a while now, so thank you for agreeing to chat with us tonight, and we might have to do this again so we can get some more of these memories captured, because you think you're the oldest person in the township now?
I never thought about that, but I might be.
Somebody asked me if I thought you were, and I think you might be. Is somebody older?
I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I don't know.
So there's lots of info here, and we need to...
If we can just get it out, remember.
So if you guys have questions, you can ask. And yes, do it again, Marie said. So we'll try to do a part 2 to hear some more stuff that you want to tell us. Okay. Let's see y'all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.